We have our next masterclass coming up, and we have a world-leading CMO joining us for talking about go-to-market and a very interesting personal story as well. So we will get to hear from Chris Foltz as he comes on stage. Chris Foltz is is also connected to Founder Institute globally. Hi, Chris.
What's up,
Awesome
my
that you
friend?
could
How are
join
you?
us.
You didn't tell me I
Everything
was
is
going to
good.
have to follow such an amazing person like that. I mean, I got to drink more coffee or something. I learned a lot.
Great, great that you enjoyed that. But Chris, before we move into your masterclass, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, certainly, my name is Chris Foltz. I'm one of the global entrepreneurs in residence at the Founder Institute, which is just an amazing program. And I get to work with a lot of amazing people like my leader right here tonight. Also, my day job, I serve as managing director of Responsible Solutions, which is a global advisory for startups, large corporations. We build initiatives. We do a lot of things that other people can't accomplish. We're based in Silicon Valley. The company's been around for nearly 30 years. But I will talk about my background in the first couple slides, and I think you'll find it interesting for certain.
Awesome, Chris. Great. If you have something to show, let's take it on. I'll just move myself into the background now.
Well, you're always there in the forefront. Trust me, my friend. Is my screen showing now?
I'm just trying to see, not yet. It's a black screen yet.
Oh, there you go.
Ah, got it. Yes.
All right. Well, I really appreciate the introduction and everything. I'm going to give it to you real tonight, everyone. A lot of people assume that because I'm on this side of the stage and I'm here to just talk about all these successes and whatnot in my life, but quite frankly, go-to-market strategies that defy the status quo is what I'm in the business of. And when I say defy the status quo, it's all about not necessarily focusing on the successes first, but on the product and outcome of failure, a very controversial subject in the startup world. All of us are fearful of it. And quite frankly, the fear of failure is one of the biggest reasons why startup leaders end up going in the wrong direction. So I feel it's important to tell you how I failed my way to this stage with you tonight. When I was a child, I really thought for certain I was going to be an astronaut. That's all I talked about. 1991, I was even part of a NASA program. Then I went to Space Academy and got my first dose of reality. They have like height and weight requirements, and I was always a fat kid. So I realized right then and there that I wasn't going to be able to be an astronaut. But someone told me that Congress is the one who controlled the budget for NASA. And perhaps if I could become a congressperson, then I could change the rules and end up being an astronaut. So I listened. My uncle was involved in politics. He was a lobbyist in the Republican Party in America. And then he introduced me to this guy when I was about 15 years old, who was running for United States Senate. He ended up winning that campaign, and I was his youth director. So it was my first foray into real politics. From there, I met a US congressperson who happened to be the chairman of the Small Business Committee for the United States House of Representatives. So I got a real world understanding of the differences between Main Street and Wall Street and everyday people that are entrepreneurs leading the way in communities in large corporations. And it was his campaign manager that actually got me involved in the first big race that I was ever part of in American politics. And, finally, out of a room of all white guys, and I moved over to one of the most influential people in my life, Elizabeth Dole. You see, a lot of people don't know who Elizabeth Dole is, ironically. She ended up being a United States Senator in America. But before that, she had a fairly significant career. She was president of the American Red Cross. She was Secretary of Transportation for the United States, Secretary of Labor for the United States. But what most people remember about Elizabeth Dole is that her husband was Bob Dole. And this is the first time I realized in politics that, it doesn't necessarily matter if you have the best backstory, the most experience, the best concept, the best campaign. It's really what ends up happening throughout the process of your life that plays a huge role in everything that happens in your future. Elizabeth Dole announced her campaign for president. It was my first time traveling. This was before I even started college, and I'm in my first presidential campaign. And it was tough, the 2000 presidential campaign. I spent time in 1999 working on this race, and ultimately it proved too hard being a woman running for United States president against a class of about 20 males in one of the most contested races in America. Elizabeth Dole's communication director, who I learned a lot from about what you're going to hear tonight in these case studies, he said, hey, listen, you know, there's this dude over in Texas, and we think he has something going on, and we may be able to get him into the White House. Well, that dude in Texas was George W. Bush. So my freshman year in college, I spent a lot of time working in this particular campaign. I learned the difference between a campaign that has a lot of experience, ideas, and vision versus a campaign that has a lot of relationships and a campaign that has a lot of exposure. So I got to see two different sides of how American society works, which ultimately led me to my understanding of go-to-market and how relationships matter more than anything for all of you. That campaign we ended up winning. It was a historic 2000 election. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, regardless of the age. It was controversial. I was there. See, I learned so much in this campaign. I ended up being everywhere. Politics became my jam. I was really good at it. Every American political race that we were like all pissed off about now, I was part of back then. And I was really good at this. And I realized the value of gaining exposure for people for the right reasons. But you see, what ended up happening was I spent all these years in Republican Party politics, literally from the age of 12, before I was even old enough to vote. And I became a fixer. I would solve problems that other people couldn't in politics. I would build relationships. I would coalition build. And basically, as opposed to going after customers one at a time, I would go after the partners that had all the customers. When I say customers, in this case, it's voters. But there was something that I couldn't fix. You see, I come from a Sicilian family. My mom, you know, God bless her, she spent 35 years in law enforcement. Both my parents did. They divorced when I was 18 months old, and they worked together for 35 years. Go figure. But you see, my mom got sick with cancer. So from a Sicilian family, what you do is you go back home and you help. So I put politics to the back burner. I moved into my mom's basement. She had to retire early from her career because cancer was taking over her life. And, you know, one thing led to another, and I put a lot of excuses and circumstances in my way, like a lot of us do when we're launching businesses. You know, we all spend so much time trying to change our circumstances, assuming it's going to better our lives or better our businesses. When in fact, if we take a moment to eliminate our circumstances by actually bettering our life in the first place, then there are no more circumstances to worry about, no more obstacles. But I didn't take that path. And I had some dental work done, nothing big, but they give you Vicodin. And, you know, with that Vicodin, you know, they give you like 2 months worth for simple dental procedures. I did it all in 2 weeks, and I came out of this an opiate addict. And the only thing that stopped my opiate addiction was my mother passed away. But what a lot of people don't know, and there's a BBC special on this, so watch it, is that, you know, I did probably the most disgraceful thing possible. You see, my mom was legendary in law enforcement. She changed the way a lot of things were done. She changed equal rights for women. But at the end of the day, in this article honoring her after her death, what is pretty much the most prolifically painful part of my life, you'll see in there that I was arrested for a theft at the funeral home. You see, drug addiction takes you in interesting paths. And sometimes those paths don't necessarily add up. You kind of lose sight of everything. And during my mom's most tumultuous time in her life, I was a straight up heroin addict, living in her basement, doing nothing. And at the end of the day, I was arrested the day after her funeral. The same judge that in the first campaign I actually volunteered in when I was a child put out a $250,000 warrant. And this was my new home. Everything I owned in my entire life was literally thrown away, put into the dumpsters, and I had to start over. Why I bring this up, and it's so important, is that I, in this jail cell, learned a whole different side of business. You see, you run into people that may have been drug dealers, or they may have been financial white collar crime criminals. And, you know, you kind of learn a different perception, and you understand that there are some people in there, like if you just taught them stocks and bonds, they'd be like the best stockbrokers in Wall Street. But instead they're selling drugs on the street corner. I learned about a different side of entrepreneurship. You see, I knew that if I could sell George W. Bush to the world, we can most likely sell anybody to anything. But I'm coming out of jail at this point. And, you know, one thing I realized, most of my life, it was focused on celebrating the victories entirely, political campaigns, victory here, victory there. But all of my successes are in reactions to my failures. And when I got out of jail with nothing, I moved into a recovery home, for lack of better terms. And I try to get involved in politics again. And the Republicans are like, nah, this isn't happening. The Democrats are like, all right, this may be the next Bill Clinton. But then they questioned my entire background being a Republican. So I needed a way to get beyond this scarlet letter. So in the recovery world, I started meeting all these people that couldn't get jobs because, because they had felonies or weird circumstances. So they were all starting businesses. And I realized we all shared similar challenges, obstacles, these scarlet letters, if you will, that we couldn't get beyond. And then I realized that politics was something that I could scale into business, into startups, into anything if I really thought about it. And I came up with these 4 requirements for going to market. And I feel this applies to pretty much all of you. And for instance, politics is pretty much the same thing. It's a constant, non-forgiving form of go-to-market where you have no margin of error. It's never over. Your startup is when you have your idea. The launch is when you get elected. If you fail that day, there isn't a second chance. So I realized concepts are the most important aspect. If you don't understand your concept thoroughly, you don't understand how you're articulating it. Most importantly, if you can't articulate it to the point where people understand it, you're out of there. In politics, that would be the candidate, the campaign in general. That's your concept. And inside of it, you have your problems, you have your solutions, but it's in an understandable way. And people need to clearly get that. Then you have offers. So once you have your concept in place, offers is the next step. You see, in politics, this is your platform. This is what you're running on, your positions on the issues. This is why people should buy you as a candidate and elect you to office. But you see, in business, this can be everything from what you're selling, even the idea that you're offering somebody to opt into an email blast. That is an offer. So understanding your offers and how they tie back to your concepts is crucial. Relationships is the key currency in life. Listen to that. Currency, relationships, they're the same thing. In politics, it's voters, it's your donors, it's the coalitions, the people that are going to endorse you. And in business, that's our partners, our affiliates, our brand ambassadors, the influencer world that we lived in now. It's a very interesting landscape now versus politics, but it's the same prudent nature. Once you have your concept in place, you've identified the offers and the relationships you need to actually get there. That's when you start talking about it. We live in this world, we try to talk about things so quickly and so early on that it's problematic. So you see, when you have your concept and if you immediately start talking about it and you don't have an offer in place, or you don't have the right relationships in place, you're backed into a corner. Trust me on that. And it's harder to backpedal away from an offer, especially when you have to raise a price. That's problematic. So you want to do it in this order. And I call this core brand strategy: concept, offers, relationship, exposure. Tonight I have 3 case studies primarily focused on relationships and exposure, but I will identify the concepts and offers along the way. Something that I came to very quick understanding, and something, the difference between politics and business is, in politics, we just force ourselves on it. In business, people don't like to be sold, right? And, when that is the case, you have to realize that they buy things all the time. But if they don't like to be sold, how does that happen? Well, they love to buy. And it happens by relating to your customers. And Michelle brought up some great points and how much it's important to understand your customer and be able to relate to them. In the world that I came from, we used to call it relating to your audience, the voters. And in a modern society across the board, they would call this stakeholders. So we live in this social impact focused world right now, which I love. But with that comes an entirely new glossary. First case study I'm going to talk about tonight is how you turn your early adopters into your marketers. I had this person come to me, Dr. Robert Wolf, a celebrity dentist, very well known for his product line, Smile Actives. #1 selling tooth whitening product in the world. Any tooth whitening pen or anything is a derivative of this product that's out there. Came to me and he said, hey, listen, Chris, we're going to market. We've historically done buy one, get one offers. And we've got some new products coming out. We want to anchor it with a buy one, get one. This is a legendary concept that a lot of people go to market with. This offer becomes problematic, especially when you have a product that's very good. The natural progress for this was buy 2, get 2 for free. They even come up with special packaging and special branding. They're like, Chris, we want you to get these in the hands of consumers across the planet. The problem that I saw is that if you give a customer 4 of these prolifically good tooth whitening pens, They basically don't need any more for 2 years. So you're in essence creating a go-to-market strategy with an offer that's going to cancel out them replenishing orders anytime in the near future. So what we did is we sat there and said, listen, what's the next step? Buy 4, get a 5th for free. We just can see this keep going on and on. The unit economics were there, but it didn't make sense. So what we did is we went back and revisited the original buy 1, get 1 free offer, which nowadays we're looking at it as something that applies to everything. It closes business, it closes the door, but you need to think about, is that the best way to get to the overall goal that you want? Most of us think that numbers like as many units as we sell, that's the number we want to focus on. Really, you want to think about this. In this case, new customers who love the product means lifelong customers that keep buying it. So we wanted to stop cutting our legs off and we wanted to focus, and we made a minor change. Buy 1, give 1 for free. We came up with a simple campaign where when people bought one of these pens for $25, we would send one to somebody that they asked for, and in order not to intrude on people's lives, we also issued them a code that they were able to use that was able to give away a pen for everyone that they bought. Now, why this mattered so much is the unit economics were better. The cost of putting 4 pens in a custom box for $50 was far more than the cost of sending 1 pen to somebody and paying for the shipping in it. But we knew that when we sold that pen, that second one, which we prohibited from being mailed to the same address, got us a new customer right away. And so it also gave us margin for an affiliate program. We called them brand ambassadors. We went to some of the top people in the Chicagoland area and around the country that were not the traditional influencers that were just winning on social media. These guys were in the actual media, right? So when you have people that actually have the media cameras as their audience, it changes the entire dynamic. These relationships lead to additional exposure. And we got it. We got these doctors and these dentists and the coolest events in Chicago. They sponsored all of them. You can see Smile Active's logo everywhere, giveaways everywhere, sales everywhere, major brand exposure by just rethinking the buy 1, get 1, even calling it BOGO still. But buy 1, give 1 away. People like to give things. People like to think that they have the answer. People like to look like heroes. Let's give our customers the opportunity to grow more. Second case study I'm going to talk about tonight is how we turned competition into customers and also our biggest brand promoters. Somebody brought up the idea of healthcare. This doctor came to me, Dr. Sev Reineck. He's a prolific startup investor. You know, he owned a minor league basketball team and league in America. And, you know, he came to me and he said, hey, Chris, I have this surgical center. I have some new tech. I have a new concept on concierge surgical medicine. And I need to get more customers and more doctors in order to do surgeries here and launch this startup concept. And one of the challenges he said to me is like, Chris, we need to get so many of them because we're down on revenues, because insurance companies are not reimbursing as much for people to actually pay for the entire surgery. Let's say you need a $5,000 outpatient surgery in America. We unfortunately don't have universal health care the same way that other countries have. In this situation, your insurance company may pay $4,000 of it. That's a lot of a $5,000 surgery. But if you don't have that $1,000, that means the surgery is not happening. You'd have to pay a $1,000 copay. And if you don't have it, no surgery. So there was a huge gap here. And the insurance companies also caused the same gap to exist in children, because in private insurance, children are not covered beyond COBRA unless you're paying money. So if you can't afford premium health care, even so, if somebody's a child, it's not universally protected. And he said, even the large insurance companies are neglecting this. And if this person doesn't have surgeries done in a surgical center, there's no revenue coming in. And what we realized, though, is that in order for him to get more customers, more patients, he needed to get the best surgeons to work in his surgical facility. At the same time as he needed to eliminate the barriers for those patients that couldn't afford things. So if we came up with a model that actually paid for the out-of-pocket expenses, which triggered the much larger checks coming in from the insurance companies or the government healthcare providers, would that be less expensive than us spending money marketing? We did the unit economics and it was. So for us to go upstream, eliminate the barrier to people getting surgery, it was actually cheaper than the traditional marketing campaign for his surgical center. So we came up with this concept. We called it Project Hugs, helping uninsured get surgery. And when I say concept, I'm going to tell you about the offers and how we went to the next step. So we came up with that concept, realized this is a marketing campaign. We came up with it on, I believe, a Monday. And this is what happened in the preceding 7 days. The next day we came up with the offers. We built the website. We had a way to opt in. We had a way for brand ambassadors to sign up. But then previous client reminded me, we need to build the cool kids table. We need good relationships. So just like I hooked Dr. Wolf up with some awesome brand ambassadors, we did the same thing here. Television people, leaders in fitness, celebrities. I'm down on the bottom, probably like the least cool there. Now we had an offer. Now we had relationships who were talking about this. We did a press release that talked about how Project Hugs was going to change the dynamic, eliminate this gap that large healthcare providers are creating. That got the attention of somebody who was coming to town, Bill Clinton and his Clinton Global Initiative. By the end of the following week, I believe on a Tuesday, we had a $10 million commitment for the Clinton Global Initiative. So a concept that became just a simple go-to-market strategy that actually eliminated a gap by looking at the cost of eliminating barriers for our customers to get to us. Spending money eliminating that barrier was more efficient than spending money talking about ourselves. So we got all the patients, we got all the surgeons. This was the go-to place. It even got somebody else's attention. First Lady Michelle Obama loved the concept so much, and Project Hugs is still in existence today, and it's changed the lives of people all over the country. And I'm honored to realize that this doctor had the vision to take the risk, to put everything on the line for something he believed in, but it actually worked in the right reasons. So when you do it for the right reasons, it won't end for the wrong reasons. Case study number 3, final case study tonight. Turn your potential partners and vendors into your brand evangelist. Well, it's one thing to have like vendors and people that you partner with, but are they actually going to talk about you in a way that's going to help you more than it perhaps even helps them? Probably not, unless you have a cool idea. This young lady came to me, Monica, and she said, hey, Chris, I have this website, Style Up Girl. We sell these interesting shoes. That's one of them. When I say interesting, they were interesting. She said, listen, I was walking in the street, Chicago one day, and I saw there was a person with a sign. They said, I have no shoes. And she felt so guilty that she sells these exotic shoes, and there are people that have signs out on the street that I don't have shoes. She said, Chris, this is what I want to do. I want to make it that when people buy shoes from my store online, that they can actually mail old shoes back in the box to us, and we can hand them out to people that don't have shoes. And I thought this was a great concept. She said, Chris, I want to call it Happy Box. Now, I didn't necessarily understand the name. It wasn't demonstrative enough. See, in a concept, you need to have something that actually tells the story right away. But she really wanted to create this box that gave back to people. I love the concept. We called it Give Back Box. We came up with the branding fairly quick. And the first thing we did was put up a social media graphic, just like everyone else. We created a pilot. We understood that the idea of taking some photos like a lot of people do online and posting it up there was one thing, but we actually needed to make this work. So we put in some envelopes into her product boxes, explaining everything. This was the final version of the first envelope. Trust me, the first one that went out didn't even look this pretty. Got our first boxes back. This is one of my conference rooms in Chicago. And we were so excited to see what was in this box. We had a couple other boxes as well. And we're like, all right, I hope these shoes are okay. I hope they're not too gross or anything like that. We opened up the boxes and we realized right away that there wasn't just shoes in there. There was art supplies. There was a gift certificate in one of them. There was a pair of brand new shoes for children in one of the boxes, and tons of clothes. See, people didn't actually have shoes. People that were buying these weird shoes, no offense to Monica, these weird shoes online, they didn't actually have the kind of shoes that they would mail back that would be beneficial to somebody that doesn't have shoes. You know, they have very impractical shoes, but they had a lot of other things that they wanted to give back. And as the boxes came in, we realized that it was really catching on. So we needed to figure out what we were going to do with this interesting concept. You know, so we created a little campaign and we started getting some early interest. So we put out a press release talking about Give Back Box and this interesting concept. And somebody said, hey, listen, a popular fashion website in America at the time, they said, hey, Chris, we have larger boxes. We have cool, trendy people. We think we can upclass this a bit. Let's go ahead and run a pilot, you know, during the, I think it was right around Thanksgiving time, to get Karma Loop people to use this label, mail stuff back, but you need to have a central place because it seems chaotic. Monica established a relationship with Goodwill, great place in America to donate things, who have an entrepreneurial model help take used things, sell them, and get people back on their feet. So, all right, we have our central location to ship things. That got somebody larger's attention. One of the top electronic stores in America online, Newegg, they're like, listen, we got even bigger boxes, whole different audience. Maybe we can get some computer items or some stuff like that for people that have them, the need for them to get to the next levels of their life. And that caught even a larger company. They're like, hey, we've got way bigger boxes than these other people. We're Dell. We ship big, old, archaic CRT computers, so we can put anything in here. That's not actually what they said, but I'm making fun of old school computers, I guess. And in there, you know, finally we're like, you know, one of Monica's original goals was that she wanted to get her shoes sold on Amazon. But, you know, everybody sells everything on Amazon, right? It's not a hard barrier of entry to get there. But when Amazon reached out to us and said, hey, listen, we want Give Back Box to be our holiday seasonal promotion, we were blown away. See, it happened so quickly. It happened so quickly in a matter of months between the idea that the concept came until the idea that the largest online vendor in the world said, we want to pilot your program. What started off as a go-to-market strategy ended up being the pivot for Monica. Give Back Box became her brand. She sold Style Up Girl off. I believe she might still be a partner in it. It's been renamed, and it's been one of the most successful journeys I've been part of. Monica and Give Back Box has been all over the place, distribution centers across the world, eliminating the problems that a lot of people take for granted. And she did it all as an individual entrepreneur that had an idea and concept. And the power of relationships grew so much that here's where Monica's at today. These are the brands that do their give back models through what was a go-to-market strategy that ended up being the new brand and the pivot. And it was a prolific thing to watch and see how it all went down. And what I realized is that it's okay to pivot. It's never too late to pivot. It's okay to realize that sometimes a concept that you come up with, help market your brand, may be the thing that actually change it. Because the most important thing to take into consideration that a lot of people overlook is that, you know, people like, Chris, we're disruptive, we're changing things, we're so different, all this. I hear it every day. Trust me, authenticity is the new disruptive. I've realized this the hard way, but one thing that I realized this past year, I know it was brought up earlier in the intro, Chris Foltz, one of the top CMOs. I've always taken an unorthodox approach. I have hundreds of case studies like this where unique things have happened, and that caught some people's attention. And my mom always made me promise to surround myself with people that were smarter than me. A lot of you in the room tonight are smarter than me. You have amazing startups that I would have never even came up with the idea or thought about in a million years. So when I was asked to join a room of people that were smarter than me, I couldn't believe it. The IRG 100, the top 100 CMOs in the world, this is based in the Netherlands, companies like Unilever, Facebook, Google, Ford, Nissan, all of their CMOs. And crazy Chris Foltz from Rockford, Illinois, who took an unorthodox approach of scaling politics into small business, into entrepreneurship, into charities, and into initiatives. And, you know, it made me realize that the most important lesson that I walked away with, and I said it earlier, throughout my entire life, that helped me understand and helps me center myself when it comes down to things like go-to-market strategies and maintaining humility on everything, which I encourage you all to do, is doing things for the right reasons is always the way to go. Because if you do things for the right reasons, they won't end for the wrong reasons. And I think that's the tragic tale that happens with many of us, where we're thinking about things like, you know, numbers, social media followers, this, that, and the other. All of those are a means to an end. Understanding where you're at today is the most important aspect of being able to get to where you're going tomorrow. And we must always, you know, think of these three things, and I'll leave it with you. 3 lessons quickly. Never forget where you came from. Never lose sight of where you're going. And focus more on what makes us all the same versus what makes us different. What makes customers the same as us, what makes our team members the same as us, what makes everyone else the same of us. That's where you're going to get your answers. So I appreciate this time with all of you tonight. For those of you that are part of Founder Institute, I will see you there. I'm a mentor in the prolific Nordic program. And I believe October 7th, I'm speaking at Stockholm Startup Grind, which I'll talk a little bit more about my interesting background and how it led me to where I'm at today. So I appreciate everything from the speakers, and that's all I got.
Awesome, Chris. I admire, I envy, I would put the word, the level of energy you bring to a discussion, the depth of that discussion, and the level of realism that's there. So I think that's uh, like when you're talking, it's as if your heart is speaking out. And there is no measurable, you can't measure that. So I think really loved your presentation, your unorthodox approach, the focus or pause or the narrative on failure and your lesson of humility and the right reason. Awesome. We don't hear that in the plastic world of go to market. So I would say startup world in one way is very plastic, but this was a very real, how would you say, a story, a real story, and a real journey into the go-to-market side. So
Well, I
thank
appreciate you
you.
giving me the stage, my friend. We'll see you soon. If anybody wants to reach out to me, they'll gladly put you in touch. Look forward to hearing the rest of tonight's events.
Thank you, Chris. And